of the Splendid Life Show. Today we have a mind, body, fitness, and health expert, Lisa Engles. She is the author of Breathe, Run, Breathe, Ancient Breathing Secrets to Make Your Daily Run, and Effortless, Revitalizing, and Mindful Practice. And she's the creator of the Breathe, Run, Breathe program and Pranayama running practice. So welcome, Lisa.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here with you today.
Same here. So, Lisa, in your book, you talk about the importance of breathing. So why is breath so important?
Yeah, I think that breath and breathing is one of the most underestimated activities that we do, obviously 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And actually, Dr. Andrew Weil said, he's quoted as saying, if he could give one recommendation to people to improve their health, it would be to breathe properly. So I think that just that alone probably tells you why is breath work and breathing so important. But here's the thing. What I've found in working with clients over the last decade or so that I've really been studying the breath and breath work and teaching it to my clients is that most people do breathe improperly. Now you might think to yourself, how can I breathe improperly? All I have to do is breathe in, inhale and exhale, and that's it, right?
Right.
Well, in fact, there is a proper way to breathe and an improper way to breathe. And unfortunately, when we breathe improperly, which most of us do, it sets off a whole cascade of events in our body. Everything from our metabolism to our sleep patterns to our energy. Our immune system gets affected by it. Stress levels are affected by it. So the breath is so key to our health and overall well-being that it's something that I believe demands more attention. And one of the things that I've done with the breath, because I come from a background of being the head coach for the Silicon Valley Triathlon Club and coaching triathletes and coaching runners and personal training, is I've really integrated proper breathing and breath work with exercise. It's done a little bit in yoga, but I'm talking about exercise where you're out moving your body, cardiovascular exercise. When you are breathing improperly and then add exercise to it, like running or cycling or walking or hiking or whatever it is that you're doing, some type of cardiovascular exercise, you only perpetuate and basically emphasize the downsides of improper breathing. So that's really what I do in a lot of my work.
So you do have a very different approach to running and exercise, right? So how did you develop, that approach?
It was really interesting. By the time I was 30, I had been a competitive runner for 16 years, a competitive triathlete for 12 years. I was already the head coach for the Silicon Valley Triathlon Club and had been coaching for many years. But I myself was plagued with chronic pain and injury. And I woke up one morning and went to go lace up my running shoes to go out for a run, and I realized that my body was in so much pain that I couldn't go out for my run. And it was like a turning point for me. It was a point at which I realized if I don't change something fundamentally right now with how I'm exercising and how I'm training and how I'm using my body, I'm going to be a 50-year-old who has knee replacements and hip replacements because I haven't listened to the messages that my body is giving me. I didn't honor my body. And that began my search for a more mindful and holistic approach to my personal training and racing, and then something that I could share with my clients and teach my clients. And just so happened at the time I had been reading about breath work, and I had already been practicing a lot of breath work in my spiritual practice. And I had learned about some techniques that I could potentially integrate into my running and cycling. And that's really where it all began for me. And I started using techniques, bumbling my way through breath work and breathing techniques while exercising, and finally mastering those techniques, having extraordinary results myself with the healing of my body and the healing of chronic pain and injury, and having peak performances that I had never had before, even when I wasn't in pain. And I started teaching those techniques to the athletes I was working with, and then to the clients I was working with, and they started having the same results that I was having. And that's really how it all began for me.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Also, in your book, you talk about the difference between a workout and a practice. So, tell us what's the difference so that our audience can know more about that.
Yeah, I think that this is a huge piece, because when I started to bring these breathing techniques into my own training, my own racing, I realized that I had to change my mindset, because if I didn't change my mindset, and if I was coming every day to my workouts with the same mindset I had before, which was I'm just going to push through it, I'm not going to listen to my body, I'm just going to, it was always like this constant battle, right, between my mind and my body. My mind was like the drill sergeant saying, you know, you're going to do it, just push through it. My body was like, okay, I guess I'll try. And eventually my body just got to the point of breaking down, and I realized, okay, it's not just about the breath and the breathing techniques, but there has to be a change in mindset. And I call that the difference between a workout mentality and a practice mentality. So the workout mentality is what we've grown up with knowing, right? In PE, when we're young kids, we go to do our workouts, or we go to the gym to work out, and the connotation of a workout is that it's work, right?
Yeah, you tough it out.
You got to tough it out. You got to push it. And you hear coaches saying all the time, come on, no pain, no gain. Just push a little bit harder. It has to hurt in order to get to the next level. And while I believe that it's important to push our comfort zones, I also believe that there's a way to do that that's much more mindful. And that's what I call the practice mentality. The practice mentality, as I talk about it in the book, might sound very similar to a yoga practice, which it is, or a Buddhist practice, or a spiritual practice, because really those were what influenced me as I was developing the program. But a practice mentality recognizes that each day you come to your workout, right, your practice, it's a journey. It's not a destination. You're going to show up differently today than you did yesterday, and you'll show up differently today than you do tomorrow. No attachment to that. There's no good or bad that you feel better or worse today than you did before. And I think that shift in mentality is essential to learning the breath work and breathing techniques, because it takes time to learn the breathing techniques. They really need to go hand in hand, and they are principles that support a very healthy and mindful way of being in and with our body and experiencing health and well-being for many, many years to come, instead of just right now in this moment and get my instant fix. You know, there is no such thing, as we know, right, of quick fixes. And that's that change in mentality, again, from the workout mentality and the practice mentality. And I go in depth into that in my book, but that's just sort of a high-level overview of what I mean by this difference between a workout mentality and a practice mentality.
You also actually, in your book, you promote nasal breathing. Instead of nasal plus oral breathing. So what's the difference, and what is the advantage of nasal breathing?
That's a really, really great question. Well, obviously, nasal breathing means that you're breathing through your nose, right?
Yeah.
Nasal oral breathing means that you're breathing through your nose and your mouth. Now, most of us have become very used to nasal oral breathing through our nose and mouth, even though most of us think in exercising that we're breathing in through our nose and out through our mouth. Most people are actually breathing in both through their nose and mouth and out both through their nose and mouth. This is an improper way of breathing. Nasal breathing, on the other hand, is obviously just breathing through the nose. Qigong master Mantak Chia, I was at one of his workshops several years ago, and someone in the audience asked about this question about, should I breathe through my nose, or can I breathe in through my nose and mouth, or how do I do it? And he said, you know, the nose is made for breathing and the mouth is made for eating. You would never try to eat with your nose, you know, so why are you trying to breathe with your mouth? And this is an essential and key piece to the practice that I teach, the pranayama running practice, is to begin to learn how to breathe properly only through the nose versus through the nose and mouth. Let me give you some really quick upsides and downsides of nasal oral breathing and nasal breathing, so you get an idea. It's important to understand that the breath is directly connected to our nervous system, so we can stimulate or trigger the stress response just by how we breathe. So if we breathe shallow and quick, that's going to stimulate our sympathetic or the stress response of our nervous system. If we're having deep diaphragmatic breaths, then we're triggering more of the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the relaxation response. That's key to note, because most of the time we're stimulating the stress response in our body simply by breathing improperly. When we breathe improperly and that stress response gets triggered, that nasal oral breath, our muscles begin to contract, the mechanics of our body completely changes. And if we're talking specifically about running, like I am in my book, when we breathe in through our nose and mouth and out through our nose and mouth, our mechanics changes. We end up with injuries that we may never have ended up with in the first place had we been breathing correctly. We overstimulate the adrenal glands. I mean, there's, again, I talk about it a lot in the book, just giving you that high-level overview. On the other hand, when you breathe through your nose, you're stimulating the relaxation response in the body, which, again, sets up a whole cascade of events to relax the body, relax the muscles, and encourage proper form. It drops you into a real meditative state, so you can actually access the zone, the runner's high at will. Really begins to shift and change how your metabolism is working, your sleep cycles, your energy cycles all increase when you're breathing properly and using the nasal breathing techniques.
So, what would you say to those people out there who don't think it's possible to only breathe through your nose while exercising?
I get that question sometimes from people who say, oh, I have a deviated septum, or my sinuses are always stuffed up, I can't breathe through my nose. And I've been working quite closely with a Buteyko breathwork practitioner, a woman who's very knowledgeable in all of this as well. And we've come to the conclusion through all of our research that it's just not true that you can't breathe through your nose. When you don't use it, you lose it. That saying, right? You use it or lose it. The nose is the same way. It adapts. So when we begin to breathe properly, we find that we can begin to breathe. It's the opposite of what most people would think, like, oh, I can't breathe through my nose because it's stuffed, or I have a deviated septum, so I'm just not going to. But actually, you have to try and begin to breathe through your nose. You'll notice that no one ever has a 100% blocked nose, that we all have the ability to breathe through our nose, and while exercising as well. Yes, it requires you to slow down a little bit at first, but just the thought that you can't without even trying is, to me, more of an inner limit, a thought block versus what the reality really is.
Yeah. So, well, what's the number one tip that you could give to somebody who wants to try this method of breathing?
Well, there's a lot of things that you can do, but I think the number one tip that I would give for people who are interested in nasal breathing while exercising, especially doing something like running, it would be to start out very, very slow. In fact, slower than what you would normally think of as slow for your running or your walking or whatever form of or mode of exercise it is that you're doing. And the reason is this: because when you have not been breathing properly, you need to strengthen your internal breathing mechanisms. And the main one that needs to be strengthened is your diaphragm muscle. The diaphragm is responsible for drawing air into your body. It's the main muscle that draws air in or helps with the inhalation and exhalation. When that muscle isn't strong, as it is in most people, they have a weak diaphragm muscle, then it's hard to draw in the amount of air that you need, and therefore obviously the oxygen that you need to feel satisfied. So you need to begin very slowly. That would be my number one tip. And if you think to yourself, oh, I can't go slow, I have to go hard, well, then do it and start practicing it while you're just walking your dog or while you're walking through the aisles of the grocery store or the mall, or while you're in your car. Just begin the practice of nasal breathing all the time.
So can you kind of demonstrate that nasal breathing? I know it's kind of maybe a bit difficult here, but
yeah,
how do you do that? Because I don't breathe very well, I think. So that's why I need like a little demonstration.
It might be a little bit hard for me to show you here, but because you can't see my whole body. But essentially what you're doing is you're breathing only in and out through your nose, obviously. So mouth is always closed. Here's the key pieces. Mouth is closed. I like to do a tongue lock with the tongue up to the roof of the mouth very gently behind your front teeth. So you just hold your tongue there, and it locks your throat so that you can't open your mouth and breathe.
Oh, okay.
And then if you would put your hand on your abdomen area, and as you inhale, you want movement through your abdomen, just a gentle movement so that the abdomen pushes out just slightly, not like you're trying to push your belly out as you inhale, and as you exhale, that belly comes back in towards your body. The things to look for and indicators that you're breathing incorrectly is movement through the shoulders and upper chest, a lot of movement that happens here. Sometimes I do a little demonstration where I have people breathe in, take a few deep breaths in and then out, and you see a lot of movement happening in the shoulders. That means that you're using your secondary breathing muscles, the upper chest muscles, the neck, which is why so many people have neck issues, tight shoulders, tight neck, because they're breathing incorrectly. Start breathing correctly, all of that relaxes. So really, you can test it out right now just by beginning to breathe through your nose, keep your mouth shut, and then put one hand on your abdomen and feel the movement of the belly moving away, out and expanding into your hand as you inhale and dropping back in as you exhale.
Yeah, I'm doing it right now. I have to close my mouth though.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think you feel more relaxed that way. So you suggest doing this like maybe sitting in the car waiting for kids to be picked up, or
Absolutely. You can do it anywhere, anytime, and the great thing is no one will know that you're doing it. It doesn't look weird. No one will know that you're practicing your breathing and breath work. The benefits of it are just enormous. So and I want to emphasize too that if you're breathing in properly and adding exercise to it, it can have detrimental effects on your body and your health. And I think that that's the thing that nobody out there is saying, that I want to make known to people. Look, learn how to breathe properly while exercising. It's going to make a world of difference for you in your body and in your physical health, as well as your mental and emotional health. Most of the time we think of breathing just as a stress relaxation thing or a meditation thing. But I'm saying, yeah, that, and you can use it during exercise for your physical health as well. Yeah.
So, hey, can you tell me a little bit about your Briggs Run Briggs program?
Yeah, so the Breathe, Run, Breathe program is a program that I developed over the past 10 years of teaching these techniques to my athletes, and finally systematizing it and putting it into a 5-step practice, which I call the pranayama running practice. So there's actually 5 steps to using your breath in this particular way while exercising. So I created a program where I actually teach you, how do you do this? How do you begin to learn how to breathe properly? How do you begin to shift your mind and your mindset to have a mindset that supports a more a holistic approach to your health and well-being, so that you can actually take advantage of these breathing techniques? And then I actually teach that practice as well. And so that's going to be coming out in October, beginning of October, so early next month. If you're interested in it, you can find out a little bit more about it at breatherunbreathe.com. So BreatherunBreathe.com. BreatherunBreathe.com. And I like to emphasize that even though it's, breathe, run, breathe can really be used for people who like to walk, who hike, the techniques can even be used for cycling and really any type of aerobic fitness activity. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, talk about your 5 steps then. So what just kind of briefly, what's 5 steps?
So the 5 steps of the pranayama running practice, I like to, again, I call it a practice versus a workout. So I always encourage my clients to begin shifting their languaging from workout, get the work out, take the work out of your workout, and start thinking of it as a practice. So the first step is called the activate step, and that's where we begin to activate our breath. We engage our breath and begin the nasal breathing process. We do some what I would call dynamic warm-up. So you're not even running yet, you're just priming your breath to get ready to run and coordinating or synchronizing your breath with dynamic movement series. That usually just takes about 3 to 5 minutes at most to do that. Then the second step is to align, is called align, and that's where we begin our running using our nasal breathing or walking, whatever it is that you're doing. But this is the piece where, have you ever noticed when you go out to exercise, half of the time your mind is in one place and your body is doing this whole other thing? It's like you can go out for a walk or a run and after 5 miles realize, wow, I was totally in my office that whole time thinking about what needed to be done, and here I am, me in San Francisco Bay, running by the bay, and I didn't even notice the Golden Gate Bridge, the Bay Bridge, I didn't even notice Marin up there. So the align step is really about releasing and aligning your mind and body with some very, very simple mindset principles that I use to do that. So again, that's a very slow part. You can think of that sort of like your warm-up, very slow movement, again with the breath. The next step is called the engage step, and that's where I introduce or have people begin to introduce patterned breathing. So breathing in for a certain amount of steps and out for a certain amount of steps very consciously, and alternating that with what I would refer to as our natural breath. deep diaphragmatic breathing. Now remember, you're breathing through the nose the entire practice. There's no breathing through the mouth. So we use patterned breathing and natural breathing, and we alternate those two in that step. The fourth step is the one that I get a lot of feedback from clients about because they love it. It's called the integrate step. And that at that point we go back to just natural breathing, and we begin to incorporate what I call mantras into our practice. And we use mantras to focus where it is that we want to go, not necessarily physically, but where do we want to be in our body and our health. If you're an athlete, where do you want to be with your performance? So I don't have a lot of time to explain mantras and the difference of what I mean between a mantra and an affirmation. They're two different things. But really, a mantra in its most basic form is a series of words or sounds that you can silently repeat that keep you focused. And it's during this step that you can very easily drop into what's called the runner's high or the zone, and you literally begin to feel like, oh my gosh, I'm in this really expansive place, feel like I'm floating over the surface of the earth, I feel free, I feel all this energy coming into me. It's a really wonderful, wonderful part of the entire cycle. And then the last step is not so creatively named, it's just the cool down. But we bring an intentional cool down. So we really come back to tuning into our body. What is it that the gifts that our body is giving us? It's a big piece of this process is creating a partnership with our body. So those are encapsulated what the 5 steps of the pranayama running practice are.
Well, thank you, Lisa, for the interview. It's been really great, and we learned a lot of different things about the breath and how important it is to our overall health. And I myself will actually try to breathe more through the nose. All right. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.